Welcome to a Shun Success Story, where we meet people who have been victims of shunning but haven't stopped there and have gone on to find really cool things in life, things that maybe they were never allowed to pursue as members of, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or some other cult group. There were a lot of restrictions placed on us, but a lot of people have been able to move on from shunning and find some things that are good in their life. Shunning is a loss. It's a loss of a life, a past, family, friends, our roots. But those of us that have been shunned from a high control group now have the opportunity and the responsibility to make sure that that wasn't in vain. People's definition of success may differ, but to me, success equals happiness. Most of us, when we pursue something in life, we're pursuing it because we think that it's going to make us happy in some way. So we put time and effort into whatever it is, hoping that it has happiness as a return. And so Shun Success Stories are stories of people that are working to grow, to find more happiness in their lives. Obviously, simply because a person has found success in one area of life doesn't mean that they have it in all areas of life. Everybody has room to grow. But if you're struggling, listen to these stories and see where maybe you can learn something from what someone else was able to do and find a place where you can fit that into some segment of your own life. It might not even be in pursuit of the same thing as the guest that we talked to. We've all been through some similar things in being shunned, and where we go from that point is where we're going to find differences. But that's okay. This is where we learn, where we grow. So, maybe you can find something in your own life that you can take away from this, that you can use to better your own life as we all just try to be happy and find our way in our life after shunning. So let's go ahead and meet today's guest.
Hi, my name is Tim. I'm 49 years old. I've been out of the Jehovah's Witnesses for about 30 years. In that time, I've been able to find success and happiness working very closely with nonprofits on boards and setting up my own nonprofit, and found that to be very fulfilling to me.
Wow. So when you were in the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses, is this something that you were able to find? I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't really involved in nonprofit work other than, supporting the cult. But, is that something that you had an interest in, or you were able to find in any way in your life that kind of a fulfillment?
It was much more difficult, going through that period of time in my life. And my parents always emphasized the importance of helping other people. I volunteered at a very young age at the National Cat Protection Society, cleaning cat boxes and playing with cats.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that was fun. But to the extent cleaning cat boxes can be fun. And my mom volunteered as an ombudsman for long-term care facilities. So I had good examples. But as I was working more closely with my Jehovah's Witness counterparts, the people I studied with and the elders, there was always a challenge to that if I had the time to do that, if I was truly interested in helping people, wouldn't my time be better spent going door to door and sitting in studies and studying myself? So there was always that pull back from actually getting involved in helping people in a real meaningful way, to focus on spreading the word of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow, that's very true. You've heard the statement, like, if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean, at work. Yeah. It's like with Jehovah's Witnesses, if you've got time to do anything else, you've got time to study one more Watchtower article or whatever, exactly. Or knock on one more door.
Right.
As if it's the only thing in life that is any benefit to anyone on any level.
Right. Yeah, there's always this hierarchy. Like, well, what's more important? What's going to get the bigger bang for your time? And it was hard to argue that anything besides knocking on doors could be even near the kind of impact that you could have in society. That was the ultimate that you could be doing.
Absolutely. They would refer to the world today as the Titanic. So why would you spend time rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic?
Exactly, yes.
So don't spend any time helping anyone in any meaningful way today.
Right.
Give them a hope for the future. So, you've been out, you said, I think for 30 years.
Hmm.
Obviously, for a lot of us, when we leave Jehovah's Witnesses, before we can start to thrive, we have to survive.
Yeah.
So, when you left, where did you find yourself in life? Did you have circumstances where you were able to just jump right in and start, helping people in other ways, or where were you kind of at in life?
Yeah, so about 30 years ago, I was starting in nursing school. I was out of high school, and fortunately, I didn't have the brutal shunning experience from my family. I certainly did with some people in the congregation, but I was sufficiently supported outside the congregation that I could still put pieces of my life together. But I still remember the first day of nursing school telling the professor that, yes, I wanted to be a nurse, but I can't hang blood for blood transfusion because it's against my religion. So I was still had the belief, but was moving out from there. But so starting even as a nurse, that was kind of in my interest profile to help people. It wasn't until several years later that I took that different step into actually volunteering and doing more from a nonprofit perspective.
Yeah. So you started then right off in nursing school.
Mhm.
So what led then to your exploration of getting involved in nonprofits? So was it just your experience as a nurse, or was it that combined with some of your natural interests, or what was
Yeah.
kind of your path toward getting involved in the nonprofit world?
Yeah, so my first experience in that was several years after being a nurse, and I was taking care of pediatric patients primarily, and seeing a lot of them coming in with injuries that were avoidable. And a colleague of mine actually, and I thought, we need to do more to do education about accident prevention. There's so many resources out there now for parents to acquire tools to help prevent accidents, as well as being educated on the different hazards that are there when you, especially around the toddler age. So we got together. We've actually formed our own 501c3 nonprofit. Did things like seatbelt or car seat clinics, where we would partner with a local preschool, and then hold on the weekends where people would drive up and we would install car seats for them or reinstall their car seats because it's really difficult to do correctly. Um,
Hmm.
we actually took a class for a week to learn how to do this correctly with all different types of car seats. But we did that for about a year. We were more focused, both of us were more focused on doing the actual work than we were like marketing and growing the company.
Oh yeah.
So, at some point we stopped. We stopped simply because we nonprofit doesn't mean. Oh, sorry about that. Um,
That's okay.
Nonprofit doesn't mean that you can function with no money. So
Oh
we
yeah.
we're not successful at that because we were just so focused on doing the actual work, and eventually it took up too much of our time to be able to do and have a full-time job and everything else we were trying to do.
Yeah, that's one of the things a lot of people don't realize about the nonprofit world is it still takes money to survive,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they have to do a lot. Fundraising is a huge part of the nonprofit world because it takes money to have people who can then devote the time to do the things that help people.
right,
Um,
right, yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
still has to eat in the end, in some
Right,
way.
right,
Even the people who are helping other people to eat have to eat
right,
themselves. So
exactly. You
it's
got to
hard
be able to
to,
take care of yourself.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's hard. It's noble, but it's very difficult to work a full time job and be, representing and out there doing these trainings around seat belts or car seats and all that. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah,
and
that's
I
a lot.
think. Yeah, and just going back to I think part of, I don't know what my business partner's issue was, but it very much, I was still young, only a few years out of being Jehovah's Witness, and I think it was because what you're touching on about you still have to eat, that even in the Jehovah's Witness mentality, going door to door and pioneering and spending all that time is you're not really getting paid for that either. That's volunteer work more or less. But how do you get pushed so hard to do so many hours of that? And then, well, okay, then I've got this side job that I do to try to at least let myself survive. And there's that inner that inner turmoil as well. Growing up Jehovah's Witness and then wanting to do good. At least in my view, I thought going door to door, I was doing good. I was helping people. I was, going to save them from Armageddon. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, as a teenager, think, okay, so how do I do this and get a job that will pay me enough that I can maybe even just work part-time at? So even venturing into nonprofit after Jehovah's Witnesses, it was this almost guilt feeling of like, well, I really shouldn't get paid for doing this nonprofit work, which obviously is not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone who pioneered and worked three part-time jobs to try to make that hustle work, and burned out really fast. It's exhausting. You can't give from an empty cup. If you give everything you have nothing left. So you have to fill your cup up too. And and that's part of it, which a lot of people don't understand. But that is absolutely part of it. That's time is money, and it takes a lot of time to devote to these types of works, and you have to earn money somewhere, so that, like I said, so that you can eat too. And Jehovah's Witnesses really handicap their members by saying, well, here you can't have an education, but also we want all your time and your money. So
well, I think there's a scripture that was used on me more than once, because I must have mentioned my concern about how am I going to eat and pay for an apartment, about and I'm a very bad Jehovah's Witness. I don't remember it specifically, but about how God takes care of the sparrows in the woods and all that. So why worry? Why worry where you're, what you're going to wear and how you're going to eat? God will take care of it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, that never resonated or was comforting to me, because I guess I didn't have the faith that it would just magically appear.
That scripture always tripped me up too. I remember asking my mom one time, so does that mean that no Jehovah's Witness has ever starved? Like, or has ever, not had what they needed and died because of that? Like, so you're telling me that, like, in the concentration camps or in no one ever died because they didn't have what they lacked what they needed.
Right.
Because they take it in such an all or nothing way. Yeah.
The logic doesn't fit.
So, so where do you go? So you start this nonprofit. Obviously, it just a lot of times I think it's a good example. And our first foray into just about anything that we try, we're going to learn some hard lessons. And despite the best of intentions, things sometimes don't work out. So where did you go from there in the world of nonprofits?
It was probably several years that I took a break from doing any kind of volunteer work or sitting with a nonprofit. But as the years rolled by, I invested in myself more from an education perspective. I completed an MBA and more recently completed a doctorate in nursing practice. So again, something I'd never envisioned myself doing as a Jehovah's Witness, and every time I went back to school, there was this kind of cognitive dissonance of my own, trying to justify, is this worth the investment? But looking back, it's easy to answer. Yet for me, it was definitely worth the investment. Certainly not for everybody, but for me, it was a good decision. And then, after I finished my education career, I re-looked at giving back again from a nonprofit perspective and started searching for local nonprofits, and found one that does caters to burn survivors, mostly internationally. And I talked to the board there, and they accepted me on their board to do some work supporting burn survivors, and it fit well with my healthcare background. and really learned a lot with them. It was a really good experience. I got to go to Ghana and do a 5 hospital assessment from their major medical center out to a small town, and how they take care of their burn survivors, and their burn victims, and why it's happening. So that was a life-changing period of time for about 2 years that I was working with them.
Wow, what a cool experience to be able to go to Ghana and do that. It's
it was fascinating.
Yeah, that has to be. And what a serious matter, to be able to help burn victims and to get into the why that's happening, and to be able to help in that way. That had to be very satisfying to be able to help people who are suffering so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's started this discussion about being successful and happy, and it's a little bit of a misnomer to say it was making me happy, but it's definitely satisfied to be able to work with people that were going through this in their lives. A lot of them had kids. It was the kids that were the burn victim. And really in Ghana, it was, I got to meet with high level officials in the hospital, elected officials at Parliament, and really champion the cause that there's still people, they're stigmatized in society. It's hard for them to get jobs because especially if they have visible scars, their whole life has changed, but inside they still feel like the same person. So I mentioned that quite a bit as well in Ghana, and then certainly bringing it back here. The organization was working with some burn healthcare professionals locally in Massachusetts as well. So I got a chance to talk to them a couple of times. But really, it was we brought people over, kids mostly over from China and a few other countries. China we had the biggest relationship with, but again, just as I was kind of in it and looking at what I was doing, it was amazing me that how fortunate I guess I was that here I've navigated certain parts of my life to get certain places and to do and experience certain things. And it was so far off from what I was picturing at 15, 16 years old. Thinking of the best I could get out of life is to be a member of Bethel and working at the printing presses. To me, that at the time was going to be the highest point in my success and happiness. And, again, looking back, and especially now hearing people who did go that route, I don't think I would have been happy at Bethel.
Oh, yeah. What a contrast to actually be able to reach out hand to hand and help someone in the now versus working in a printery. Or binding Watchtower propaganda. That certainly wouldn't have been something that ends up giving you that same satisfaction of being able to see the work that you're doing and reaching out to people who are truly without a voice and that need help.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that part of my nonprofit or volunteering philosophy as I got older is as I follow the 3 T's. There's time, treasure, and talent. And when I was assessing, nonprofits, certainly everybody wants to take your treasure or your money. You're not going to find a nonprofit organization that's going to turn that away usually. But when I'm researching who I want to work with, I also want to find somebody not just who will take my money, but that will accept my time doing anything. It could be envelope stuffing or just what can I do to help. But also what's a little bit trickier is my talent. So I have a background in my education and my experience. So that's really where I was focusing a lot of my intentions in a nonprofit is, are they going to be able to leverage my skill base and let me contribute that as well? Which again is why I think the Burn Survivor organization was such a good match, and I learned so much during that time. And again, just I know from the religion perspective of the Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a definite emphasis to educate and get people skilled in the religion itself, and knowing your Bible scriptures, knowing how to argue back and forth. We have that theocratic school where we brush up on our abilities to present. So they're almost following a similar model, because they definitely want you to give the time, they want you to give the money, and their meetings are set up in such a way that they're trying to cultivate skills in you that you'll wind up using in your volunteer experience. And it's interesting from that perspective, in that once you go down that road and you've invested in yourself as a skilled presenter and negotiator, and that you can discuss scripture back and forth, far better than the average person. You're kind of trapped in that, because now you've got your 3 T's, but they're all going towards this, that religion, the cult, essentially, to support it. And I can see, if you have that kind of mind, that you do want to help people and you want to bring something to the table in a meaningful way, more than just giving money, and you want to give time and talent as well, it's very easy to get sucked up into that, because now you feel like you're truly giving a comprehensive contribution to helping people, when it's, as I said, the once I'm now out of it and can look back, the meaningful impact really wasn't there for me.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And that's a really good point about how they've got your 3 T's at that point, which really does make you feel involved. But like you said, for yourself, that might not have been something that you really connected with. In that way. So where do you go from there? Because do you still work for that nonprofit, or have you moved on to others?
Yeah, I left that nonprofit. Just again, things were getting very busy for me, so I had to leave, unfortunately. But very recently, I found another one after taking a break for a couple of years, and I now am a board member of the Massachusetts chapter of Gift of Adoption. It's a relatively new chapter. The organization itself is many years old. But what we do is provide funds for families who are trying to adopt, who are more in their late stages of the adoption process, which is very complicated, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what happens is people run out of funds, or there's last minute charges at the very end. And it's devastating to have an adoption process get halted or stop altogether, simply because they don't have the rest of the funds to be able to finish the adoption process. So to me, that's tragic and shouldn't happen. And I'm just starting with that organization, but along with the 3 T's, I'm looking forward to working with them in regards to special needs children that are in the foster system or trying to be adopted, and really advocate for those families that are trying to bring together and who've embraced a child with special needs, whether it's behavior issues or medical issues. Because I think that's a special kind of parent who's bringing that child into their family. And they need all the support that they can get. So that's what I'm trying to bring to the table.
Wow. I guess adoption not being something I'm intimately familiar with, I know that it can be very costly, and I can't imagine the mental and emotional toll it would take to go through. I know it's a very lengthy process too.
Yeah.
And to get near the end and run out of money, that would be just that's tragic.
It's not that
for that to be the barrier.
Reason. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So, do you have any? Obviously, you're starting this. Do you have any other goals or anything that you've thought about doing more with in the future, or any educational plans or anything like that?
Oh my, I consider myself a lifelong learner, so I would like to be an associate professor at a university at some point. So I'm putting things in place to be able to do that. Hopefully, anywhere from the next few months to a few years, just kind of as a part-time additional thing to do. So that's one, and really I still work not in a clinical setting any longer, but in the pharmaceutical industry, and I want to get more involved in regards to supporting patients in that industry as well. I'm in the R&D side as it is. So I do get to interact with a lot of other clinicians and support them. But there's a growing movement to really have patients at our center vision. So I'm looking forward to opportunities that way also.
And so, what do you see in all of this? It's about helping people. The
Yeah,
very thing
yeah,
that we were brought up that we were going to do. We were going to help people and save them, essentially, in some way. And you are actually being able to help other human beings today and make an impact in their life, whether directly or indirectly. And what a beautiful thing that is, that you're able to do that and to find ways to do that that are meaningful to you, and that are also meaningful to the recipient, of the
yeah,
person that you're doing it for, instead of just knocking on doors, uh, which is meaningful for the Jehovah's Witness, but typically not meaningful whatsoever to the person whose door you're knocking on.
right.
You are
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
spending your time, hand to hand, helping in these different areas, and it all started with you getting into nursing. Look at
yeah,
the
yeah.
trajectory
Very
and
much.
the path that you've been able to take.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's definitely a growth and change in mentality, because as a Jehovah's Witness, you're doing those things, your service time and going door to door. For me, it was initially because it was fun, it was interesting, and you got to hang out with other Jehovah's Witnesses, and um, but then you get tired and you want a little break, and if you do that, then it's the notion of, well, you're helping people, changes into, well, now we've thrown this term around before, at least I've heard you say it, now you're blood guilty
Yep.
for not doing it, and now it turns into, well, now I have to do it to save myself.
Hmm.
um, and that's for me, it was not a good sustainable motivator, to think that, okay, now if I don't go out there and do this, I'm guilty for not putting my best effort forward, rather than I'm doing this to try and help them live through Armageddon or whatever it might be. um, and to get past that now, I don't carry that guilt around with me, that I do want to alleviate suffering to the extent that I can, and have it in my power to do so. But I don't feel that guilt any longer about, well, if I'm not doing this in every waking moment, free moment that I have, then I'm the one at fault for not being able to help. I've been able to strike a nice balance that I'm comfortable with, without that blood guilt mentality.
Wow, that's a great point. Isn't it nice to be able to do something because it's something you care about and you want to do, and not something that you feel like you're being pressed that you have to do? Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's a great point. Well, any words of advice for others who might be listening and have thought about pursuing nonprofit work, or
Mhm.
just personal growth? Do you have any advice or parting words you'd like to leave with anyone who might be thinking about getting involved in other ways like this?
Yeah, I think what worked for me is just the baby steps. When you look at everything you might want to do, whether it's pursuing a terminal doctorate degree or sitting on a board of something, that depending where you are in your journey, anything you want to happen can happen, but it's got to just start with the little steps. And for me, it's not a lot of intentional planning. A lot of it is having kind of a bigger abstract goal out there, and then enjoy the journey to get there and take, like I said, the baby steps. So just being patient with yourself, knowing what little thing you need to do next, and then do that, and then think about, again, okay, well, what's the next thing, and then the next thing. And so much is out of our control anyway, time and circumstances, and I think that's scriptural too, the unforeseen circumstances. So it's all still there. But it does that we're all subject to different things that take us off course from what we think we're going to do. And that's okay. If that goal is no longer going to be feasible for you, your interests have changed, or different people have come into your life and shown you different things that you're now interested in, that's all good. It's take those baby steps, enjoy the process, and be flexible.
I love that. A goal, as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, it seems like it was a destination that you reached, and then you had actually accomplished a thing. The entire journey was basically of no value, as right. They saw it. It was always about the destination or the goal. And, a goal is just, it's a destination of sorts, but it's just a direction. It's there to give you a direction to go in. And if at some point in that journey, you see that you want to go in a different direction, that's great. That's still progress. Or if life sends you in another direction, then that's what you do too. But I like how you just broke it down into baby steps, because that's more focused on the journey. Just, what's next, what's next, what's next. It doesn't have to be about the end results of some massive universal plot among gods and other supernatural beings.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's all good. There's a saying, I think I've even posted on your site, that it's my own personal that resonated with me. I think it was Douglas Adams that said it, that isn't it enough to enjoy the garden without having to believe there are fairies that live under it. And that was impactful, that, and helped me on my journey to just kind of appreciate what's here and now, and marvel at what could be next. I don't need to dress it up any further than that. There's so much to appreciate along the way.
So, what did you learn? Is there maybe something that you can take from this and apply in your own life? For many, fear gets in the way of making real changes. But courage isn't an absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and doing something anyway. If you want help on your path to success, please reach out. Coaching people that have left cults to find more happiness in their lives is what I do. Aside from this whole podcast thing, obviously. If you're feeling stuck or afraid, you don't have to stay there. Everybody deserves a shot at success, whatever that looks like for them individually. I can even help you figure out what that might look like for you. These cults took our past, and we don't have to let them take our futures as well. Email me at shunnpodcast@gmail.com if you're interested in working together. Many are, and they're finding better things in life. For more resources, go to shunnpodcast.com or my other website, xjwhelp.com. That's exjwhelp.com. If you want to support the work I do, you can do so at patreon.com/shunned. If you've found success in something yourself that maybe makes you happy, whether, maybe it's along the lines of education, employment, business, something creative or expressive, finding friends, you're creating the family that you want, whatever that might be that you would define as your success, your happiness in life, please reach out. Maybe you can help inspire somebody else out there too with your story to get involved in something that makes them happy. Many of us were just never really exposed to many opportunities. So maybe you have something that would light somebody else's fire out there. Whatever you do, don't settle for the possibilities that a cult gave you. The world is open to you now if you're open to it.